We're going to go out to Phoenix and talk with a gentleman who I had heard a lot about through some various friends here and there, who has a book out called Adventures in Legal Land. And his name is Marc Stevens. He's in Phoenix. He's an author. He has a radio show, and that is on the Liberty Radio Network. He helps people and consults with people who've got themselves into some victimless crime boondoggles with the bureaucracy. And Marc Stevens, welcome to the show. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great, thank you. Good morning.
Yeah, nice to have you on the show. Are you staying out of trouble, Marc Stevens?
I'm always in the lion's den with these people. I tell you, it's always I've been doing consultation now since '97, and so every day I'm unfortunately on the phone with one of these IRS agents or attorneys. So it always seems like it's at the doorstep.
A lot of tech stuff. His website is called MarcStevens, M-A-R-C, Stevens.net. So you work, Mark, with a lot of folks who have gotten themselves in a bind with the IRS.
Yeah, some of them have gotten themselves in a bind, and some it was just a random thing. But I work a lot of people with tax issues and traffic and drug possession, things like that.
Is the IRS a private corporation? Or are they part of the government, Marc Stevens?
Well, I don't even think there's a government. I think you have basically a gang of killers, thieves, and liars, and the IRS is just a part of them.
Well, that's pretty profound. You don't think there's a government? I mean, they have a White House up there, and these guys all go to work and get a check, and something going on?
No, this is one of the things that you can deconstruct, because you can only have a government when you have legitimate state. In other words, you can prove very easily that there are no citizens or states, and so because you pull the foundation out, there is no government, because you have to. It all goes together. So without the state and the citizens, then you have no government. Yeah, you've got people pretending to be, but it's demonstrably false. It takes about a minute, and I'd be happy to go through it.
Yeah, we would love that this morning. If you care to join us, you hear something that Marc Stevens says where your head explodes, don't get duct tape and wrap your head. Just call 888-663-6386. Email patrick@oneradionetwork.com. And in the first 2 minutes here, I can see we're going to have some fun this morning with Marc Stevens, MarcStevens.net. Okay, explain it to me, Lucy. What did you just say, that there's no government, no citizens?
No government, no citizens, no nation, no countries, no cities, no residents. It's all a fiction, all of it. And very easy to prove, which is why I can go into court and ask an attorney who claims to represent the state. I can ask him if there's evidence of a complaining party, and they will rather withdraw the charges than answer, because to show that there is a state, you have to prove that there are citizens, which is where they fall and where they get into trouble.
Now, wait a minute. To show that they're the state, like say the state of Arizona is going to go after somebody for something, right? Whatever, possession of raw milk, right?
Yeah.
Which they do, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the state of Arizona says, okay, you have raw milk and we're going to just fine you. So you go in there, Marc Stevens, and you say, what do you say to them?
Well, first, you're not going to have the state of Arizona saying anything. You're going to have a man or a woman claiming to be acting on behalf of the fiction. So the state doesn't say anything. You just have some lawyer who is saying it.
Uh-huh.
And what we have to keep in mind, what I tell people, because we have a $5,000 challenge on my show that anybody who can provide evidence, and I mean empirical facts of a state or citizens, they get $5,000. And I give them a big hint that the state of Arizona, since you mentioned that first, the state of Arizona did not exist prior to February of 1912. So that gives you an idea that it's not the geography or a physical location, because, well, that's been here since time immemorial. So it's political. It's obvious it's political. I mean, I've even had a judge here in Phoenix admit to me, it's in the book, that the state of Arizona is an act of Congress, which is exactly what it is, which is words on a piece of paper. But if we break down what a state is, it's a body politic.
What does that mean, Mark?
Oh, a body. I apologize.
No.
Too fast.
That's okay. You're doing good.
A state is a body politic, a political body.
A political body, meaning just a bunch of people that got together and said, this is what we are, and...
Well, that's the claim, and you can find this if you look in the Massachusetts Constitution. It tells you pretty much what a body politic is. That it's a free association of citizens who have gotten together to do X, Y, Z.
Okay.
Now, the U.S. Supreme Court, just so people know I'm not pulling this out of thin air, legally what a citizen is, and you can see this in Luria, L-U-R-A, versus United States, that a citizen is a member of the body politic owing a duty of allegiance in return for a duty of protection, and that one is a consideration for the other, that these are reciprocal obligations. And what I had found out years ago was that the government, what they call the government, or the state, they are under absolutely no legal duty to protect anyone. And
okay,
and that I have an article on my website that I posted a few weeks ago about this, and what the implications of that are. You can also take it from just a practical standpoint, that because the support for government is always compulsory, that no duty to protect you would arise anyway, because that would be admitting that, like in the speakeasy days, that the people who paid protection money to Al Capone, that Al Capone was actually legally obligated to protect them. That's ridiculous. So there's no duty of protection. And without the duty of protection, there is no duty of allegiance, which means there are no citizens.
Well, okay, let's work backwards with that. That's fascinating. So we have, if there is no duty of protection, in other words, my relationship with Texas or your relationship with Arizona, if there's no reciprocal duty that we have to protect each other, then there's no duty of allegiance. And then if you don't have those two things, then you don't have a relationship at all.
Right, there's no exactly. There's no membership in the body politic, because there is no duty of allegiance in return for protection. I mean, even the California Supreme Court has gone so far as to say in Salza versus City of Antioch that police officers have no statutory duty to do anything. They don't even have to clean up or prosecute. They don't have to do anything. So it's that relationship that is taken out. There's no proof of it. There's no facts. That they tell you point blank that there's no duty to protect you, so there's no duty of allegiance. There are no citizens. And if there are no citizens, well, then it follows there's no body politic. If there is no body politic, there is no state, hence there is no government. It's just a gang of killers, thieves, and liars that are pretending.
So when you say there are no citizens, I've heard about this idea, Mark Stevens, about the 16th Amendment and where the whole thing with the black population and then making people citizens, and that we don't really want to be citizens because as citizens we just have civil rights and not inalienable rights.
Well, I've heard that. And
but that's not correct?
Well, that's a huge can of worms there. Because the whole Civil War was not about African slavery. It was about white slavery. It was to enslave everybody. Under this notion that they're citizens and residents of a non-existent state. You can't look at the Constitution as really any authority for anything, because the Constitution, to quote Lysander Spooner loosely, the Constitution has no inherent authority. If it has any authority at all, it is only as a contract between man and man, and it doesn't even purport to be so. And if it did bind anybody, then it only bound those who signed it in a way to make themselves liable. And even if they did, which they didn't, they're all dead now.
We've had a fellow by the name of David Williams on the show about a year ago, and he was claiming the same thing, that if you're not signatory on the Constitution, it really doesn't apply to you. Is that true?
Well, right. For the Constitution, which is just 4 pieces of paper, for it to be obligatory on you or anybody else, it has to be as a contract. And it doesn't even purport to be a contract. And nobody actually signed the Constitution as a signatory. They signed as witnesses, but nobody signed in a manner to make themselves liable under it. And it doesn't even purport to be a contract. And it may say, like Spooner points out, that, for, our posterity, but like Spooner says, just because I build a house for me and my posterity doesn't mean that I want to force my kids to live in it. I have no justification to do that. It would be immoral to even try.
So, well, we're going to have fun this morning, man. So, are you saying that this whole thing is just this thing we call the government, and it's just a big illusion. It's just people running around saying that I have authority over you and blah, 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 and they take your money and they go to court and they take your money and they throw you in jail, and it's just a big matrix kind of thing.
Yeah, and one of the things that separates me or makes where I'm different than a lot of other people that have written about the same stuff, I go into court and I do this every day. I'm not just doing it on my radio show or through a book. Mm-hmm. My book, Adventures in Legal Land, is primarily based on personal first-hand knowledge and experience, because I've gone in to court personally and asked attorneys who claim to represent the state to provide evidence to do that. Now, that's not an unreasonable thing. If somebody walks into court claiming to represent the state, well, they, legally, they're obligated to provide some evidence. And so I've then, after the book, been able to have thousands of people replicate that, where we're asking these prosecutors to prove, look, we just want them to prove and verify what they're saying. They're standing in court, which is where it's supposed to be empirical. This is where it's supposed to be scientific. And all we're doing is asking them to provide evidence of a client, and they can't do it.
In other words, give us an example of how you prevailed very clearly in a situation like that. Now, you're not an attorney, so you're not allowed to go in for somebody else. They have to do it for themselves, correct?
Most of the time, yes. People do it themselves, and they come to me for help with that, and I'll do consultation.
So give us a clear example, Mark Stevens, where this worked, this concept that you have.
All right, well, let me use JT, who's my co-host, who I met because he had bought the book and had great success with it by taking what he learned from the book and then going into court. He asked 3 questions, and it was a criminal traffic proceeding. And
so he got a ticket.
Yeah, he had a ticket, and he had gone in, and this was the initial appearance. And the prosecutor, thank goodness, was there. Mm-hmm. And he's claiming to represent the state. So JT asked, am I entitled to a fair trial? And the judge said yes. Okay, great. Mm-hmm. He said, well, who has the burden of proof here? He said, well, the judge said, well, the prosecutor does. Oh, okay. And then he asked, is there evidence of a complaining party?
Is there evidence of a complaining party? The complaining party would be the state of Arizona, I guess.
But that's not an answer to the question.
Okay.
And now that's typically what they say.
Right.
You're right. But this is where experience in court and dealing with people like this on a regular basis is very helpful, because you have to realize when you're in court and you're dealing with attorneys and bureaucrats, it's all about distraction and fear. They want you to get off that particular point. Now, when you ask if there's evidence of a complaining party and you stick to that and you only accept a yes or no answer, chances are, like what they've done with me, you're going to have deputies standing right behind you to intimidate you into knocking off that, such questions.
So when you've done this and asked if there's evidence of a complaining party, what do you say when the attorney for the state of Arizona, Mark Stevens, stands up and says, I'm the complaining party?
The attorney's never done that.
They don't, because they're not.
Well, they know better than attorneys may not do business in a very ethical, moral way, but they're typically not stupid. And so they have a pretty good understanding of how courts work and trying to keep you distracted. So in my experience, they've never said that they are the complaining party. What they typically do, like with JT, is they withdrew the charges because the judge refused to bail them out. Now, the judge will, more than likely when you ask this question based on experience, the judge will jump in and say, state of Arizona. And so you just gently remind him, oh, well, objection, I move to strike that. It's not a responsive answer to the question, and I don't believe that you as the judge should be answering for the prosecutor.
Oh, boy, he probably is not very happy when you say that.
Well, they're their rules. They're not my rules. It's supposed to be their rules. When you ask questions to the prosecutor, the prosecutor